Hello.
Hey Kelly, how are you?
Good. How are you doing?
I'm doing great.
Awesome.
This is new and this is fun.
Yeah. Well, it might end for our branches. We've been getting word because we need to allow for closed captioning.
Uh-huh.
So we're gonna work on figuring out how to do that.
Okay. I've
Instagram doesn't
never
allow it.
I've never gone Instagram live
Oh,
before, so this is something new and fun. Does my background look okay? Because I
yeah.
saw one and she was outside in the forest, so I don't have that excitement.
I don't either. I'm at the branch. I was allowed to sequester myself in this room so I can take off my mask.
Okay. But I do have my daughter's bird here. I can maybe
Oh,
bring him at some point.
what kind of bird?
He's a conure. He's a miniature Amazon parrot.
Oh, ooh. Do they
He
make a lot of
might
noise?
Sometimes he might hear us talking and get jealous and want to come and be a part.
That'll be awesome.
Yeah, I don't know. You might not like it.
There you go. I
You
hear him now.
gotta hear him say, "Okay, stop."
Awesome. I think we're just gonna give it like a few more minutes
Okay.
and then let people join.
Are we live right now?
We are live right now. So I don't know if you see on your screen all the people that are kind of joining us at the bottom.
Okay, good. Oh, we're really popular. We have 8 viewers.
Yes. Yes. That's been our average. The best is
Around.
though after Instagram Live we share it on Instagram TV. So
Okay.
the viewers come in later.
Okay.
So have you
Cool.
so you saw last week? Did you see some of our other career series Instagram
No,
Lives? Or?
no. There were a few I was gonna click on, but yeah, I was just trying to see how this works. I do lots of interviews, but this is my first with doing this. This is fun.
Yeah, it's very informal. It's just kind of talking back and forth, and hopefully people will like put some questions in and can answer
Okay.
those. But I think we're getting there. We're at 9
Ooh,
now, 10.
got enough. This is amazing. Hey, somebody put a little heart in there. What's
Yeah.
that?
So you can actually add reactions, so people can put their hearts or thumbs up, or
Can I put my own?
I think so. Maybe, maybe not.
Oh, what is that? Okay, something happened. Oh, there's glitter. Okay, that's new.
Oh yeah, so we have those options too. We can actually add that thing. I think it's like in the comment. We're having fun, people.
Okay. See,
All
judges
right.
aren't bored.
Oops. Did that work? Wait, did I lose you? I pushed a button. Okay,
I'm
good.
here.
Whew. I gotta stop pushing buttons too. This is all pretty new for us as well.
Oh, this is
All
cool.
right. All right, so let's get started. So let me introduce myself. So my name is Kelly. I'm the young adult librarian at the West Valley Regional Branch. Tatiana from Granada Hills and I teamed up to put on this series for summer for career series for teens. And today my guest is Judge Eric Taylor. Judge Taylor is the assistant presiding judge of the Superior Court of Los Angeles County, overseeing all trial courts in Los Angeles County. He has served the Los Angeles Superior Municipal Courts for 21 years. Judge Taylor is
Superior
elected for what?
Court, the LA Superior Court.
Just for Superior Court, not municipal courts?
I started out in the municipal court, and then those disappeared after a year,
Okay.
and we all became a Superior Court.
Oh. You guys need to fix that on your bio on the court, the LA County court system.
A little fact nobody cares about.
Oh. Well, you're elected to your current position in 2018. You're also the only person to be elected twice to serve as president of the California Judges Association in 2003 and 2016.
Right.
Besides being a judge, Taylor works as senior lecturer of communication studies at Loyola Marymount University. Judge Taylor holds a JD from the University of Virginia School of Law and a BA from Dartmouth College. He studied Spanish literature at the universities of Granada and Salamanca, Spain. I want to say Salamanca so bad I can't get myself to not do that.
Salamanca. Salamanca.
Mansa,
Salamanca.
Manca. Ah.
Salamanca.
Well, thank you so much for being here. So, first off, you were born and raised in Los Angeles, correct? Before
I
you.
was I was born in California, up north,
Oh, okay.
and then we moved down to Los Angeles after going to Ohio and coming back. So pretty much since preschool, I've been in Los Angeles.
Awesome. Now, growing up here, is that anything in your childhood or later on high school or junior high kind of influenced your desire to be a lawyer or a judge later on?
No, you know what? I had no idea that I was not thinking about being a lawyer or a judge. I mean, I started out wanting to be an airplane pilot
Oh,
at one point, and then I kind of waffled from that to thinking about being an architect
oh
because
wow.
I saw the Brady Bunch, and the dad on there was an architect. So I'm like, oh, that looks kind of fun because you could have a lot of fun with all these different kids and like, have a big family. And that just sounded like a lot of fun to me. And so, and then I kind of changed over and wanted to be a doctor um, because I spent a lot of time in the hospital when I was in high school for an illness that I had. And then I just loved watching the doctors and the nurses helping all the other kids in I was in the pediatric ward and just watching what they were doing. And I thought that was amazing. So eventually when I did go to college, I was pre-med and, and it's sort of, I sort of figured out after a couple years that I didn't really want to be a doctor. But I was in a position where I could change my mind, and I did. And then I didn't know what I wanted to do for a couple years in college, and it kind of freaked my father out. My mother didn't care as much, and so then eventually I just started talking to a lot of lawyers and had some experiences with some really great lawyers like Johnny Cochran, who my dad knew.
Oh wow.
Yeah, he was amazing. He talked to me really young about the kind of work he was doing, and then Thurgood Marshall was a friend of my dad's
Oh my
too, and
gosh.
I know my dad he had some cool friends. He
Yeah.
was a really great guy because he was a freedom rider. He was really he got to know Thurgood Marshall a long time ago, along with a lot of other great lawyers in the Bay Area.
Hmm.
Um, a few of them that I went to go work with. So, but anyway, I thought about a lot of things growing up, and and then you realize in life you don't have to make up your mind when you're like 12 or 18 or 19. You just kind of have to put yourself in a position where you can take advantage of opportunities when they come along and put yourself in a position where you have options. And fortunately, I was in that position. And so when I finally knew what my calling was, it just happened. It just happened. But I kind of went far ahead, but we can go back to school or high school or whatever you want to talk about.
I
'Cause
think we
I
have an
think these are
hour.
younger viewers, and these are younger viewers, right?
Hmm. Yes. Yeah. So we do
Okay.
want to talk about high school, especially
Okay.
for, I mean, so apparently you didn't know you wanted to be a lawyer in high school. So there's no really like
No,
interning somewhere or,
that was the furthest thing from my mind.
wow.
Being a lawyer or a judge, I didn't even think about that until a year before I applied to be a judge. And that sort of that kind of happened too. But yeah, like in school, like I just had like I went, I thought about being a pilot, and just because I had taken a few flights and thought it was amazing that they could make these huge things fly and take people places, and it just seemed like an amazing responsibility, but just the freedom of flying around, it was just really attractive to me. Um, so I was at the airport with my father, and I saw a couple pilots, and he said, "Go talk to them." And of course, you don't want to do that when you're a kid, but
Yeah.
he said they'll talk to you. So I just walked over and I said hi, and then they stopped and they had those uniforms on with the little hats, and they started I said hi, like, "You're a pilot?" And they started talking to me, and yeah, we're pilots, and they told me what they had to do to become pilots, and I remember that conversation. But what struck me is like that conversation helped me to understand that people in professions will stop and talk to you. They'll talk to young people if you call or you write. If I get a call from somebody in high school at work, that's the first call I'm going to return. And the last call will probably be to another judge. I'm just kidding. But the first call is going to be to a young person, just because I remember that, and a lot of us remember how many people helped us get positions, and I mean, really, those conversations can make all the difference. And sharing opportunities and talking about internships, and so yeah, if I can give like the best message to all the younger students watching is just don't be afraid to ask for advice. You'd be surprised. The busiest people will stop everything to talk to you.
Oh gosh, yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, I
So
think a lot of adults will talk to kids or teens more than any other adult.
yeah, yeah. But so I mean, I grew up here in LA, and I mean, my dad was around, but like pretty much my mom raised us, and I grew up in the Crenshaw district, and my brother, I and my mom were in a small apartment there that she still has to this day. And she was a part-time manager and then became like an apartment manager for all the apartments we lived in an area called the Jungle. And a lot of people don't know where that is, but it's like there are a bunch of apartments at the base of Baldwin Hills. And so we grew up there, and we weren't wealthy at all, and there were a lot of parents and families in the same position. Who were kind of barely making ends meet, and all the parents would watch each other's kids while they tried to go to work. And we just had a really, really good community. And I just talked to a lot of the people who were around my neighborhood, and like just learned a lot from other people's parents. And I went to Audubon Middle School, which is a public school. And then someone approached me about applying to this program called A Better Chance, and it's called the ABC program, A Better Chance. And it places kids who are thinking about like other educational opportunities. It places them with private schools around the country, boarding schools, and private schools with full scholarships or whatever money you need to go.
Oh, wow.
So I applied and had a few schools contact me, and one school in particular was a boarding school in Carpinteria near Santa Barbara. It was about 200 kids, and they invited me to come stay overnight, and I did. And then they offered me a 4-year or 3-year scholarship. So that's where I went to high school, and was really influenced by my teachers, who really took the time to help me learn subjects. Like, honestly, I was pretty weak in a few things, and I thought I was good at them, but math, I had to relearn math.
Yeah.
I had some reading problems, and I stuttered too. So I had a lot of things to work through. And in fact, I still stutter now. I just know how to control it a lot better by a lot of the techniques that I learned from singing and reading and otherwise. So anyway, I went to school there, and then it ended up applying to schools were writing me. And I applied to those schools, including some of the Ivy League schools. Dartmouth College was one of the first schools to reach out to me.
Oh, wow.
And it was, and then some people were saying, you're not going to get in there, don't apply. And here's another lesson, other than talking to everybody that you can, don't let anybody tell you that you can't get in someplace. Like, you only get to apply to college once. Apply to where you think you want to go. Exactly. Apply. And if you can't afford it, they have fee waivers. And it's amazing that if you reach out to the school and tell them, what your story is, you'll find people there who will try to help you. They'll bring you in, tell you what's important in the applications, and help you complete them. And I had that. And so I got on a payphone back then, no cell phones. Got on a payphone and called and said, I got this letter from you. And they said, oh, great. Here's the kind of things we need to know. Whereas the counselors at my school were telling me, you shouldn't apply there. You should apply to these schools. You don't want to get your hopes too high. And they were completely wrong. And I've heard other kids even now, including my daughter, had the same issue with counselors telling them, don't apply. Well, she followed my advice and she got into her top school. She got in early. Another thing, college admissions, early admissions is the way to go. If you apply early, your chance is more than double to get in that school. Um, but anyway, I applied to Dartmouth and a few other schools and got into a lot, waitlisted a couple, rejected from a couple, but Dartmouth was my first choice, so that's how I ended up back there.
Wow. So you brought up
Yeah.
actually a really good point, which I always try and tell my teens, I talk down to the same thing. Because that's the thing, the counselors here and everybody always tells the kids, oh, don't go out of state. It's too much money. It's gonna be awful. Stay in California. But I was telling teens, I'm like, well, what do you want to do? Like, there's so many great programs at all these different colleges, and you want to go to them. Don't worry about the money. There's the scholarships.
Yeah.
But I see that you would probably agree with.
Yeah, I mean, I didn't think about the money at all, and I knew I was going to be paying my own way because I was an independent student, and I got that. If there are kids out there who are in programs like foster kids or kids who are emancipated for other reasons, or or whatever it might be, if you can show that you're not financially dependent on your parents at some point, then the money is a lot easier to get. But most schools, right, you don't have to go to that extreme. Mine was an extreme because I had a full scholarship at a school, so my parents weren't really taking care of me. So it made that path easier for me. But for 99% of the other people listening, and I hope that message gets to, if you have any kids who are in with foster families or otherwise, like, it's such a great option that you have to get almost full funding. And for the 99% other kids or young people, I don't know if you want to be called kids, but young people listening, if you apply to the best schools, the private schools, meaning if you apply to Harvard, they have a system set up now where if you get in and your family makes under $100,000 a year, you get a full scholarship automatically, and it gradually decreases up to $200,000, and it might be a little bit more than that now. So there is still funding between $100,000 and $200,000 a year of income. Of course, they look at whether or not they have a house, and but you can sort of you apply, and it's really need based. And schools that really want you will try to give you a better deal. And you can even use if you get a letter, an offer for a full ride from one school, and another school you really like is not giving you that full scholarship, you can show them your letter for a full ride someplace else.
Oh.
And if they really want you, and if they gave you an offer, they likely want you pretty badly, you show them that, and they'll try to be competitive with it. So as far as money being an option, I mean, I never let distance or money be an option, or be an obstacle between me and education. And I mean, I learned from my father and my grandmother that you only get one chance to go to school. In the beginning, of course, you can go back to school later on, but really one chance to apply to college as a freshman when you're 18. You get one chance to do that. So no matter where it is, just go there. If you get into Harvard and you have a choice between Harvard and a local school, and you're just choosing the local school because it's local, go to the school that you dream of. You only get one shot at that. And if you go to a school like one of the higher rank or more prestigious schools, but that whole framework is changing now too. It's much easier to transfer to another school from there than it is to do the other. So if you don't like it, you can come back. So if you go to the East Coast and you say, oh, New York, the NYU's not for me, at least you know that, right? But if you don't ever give it a shot, you're never going to know. Your whole life, you're going to wonder, why didn't I try it? Mm-hmm. So anyway, my daughter applied, and then she never came back. She actually just went back to New York again a week ago, and she loves it. But she knows she can always come back to LA. Mm-hmm. Yep. So yeah, don't let money get in your way. And by the way, you got your whole life to make money. The one thing I would say is, you know, depending on what you want to do, like balance it out. Like don't pay $500,000 to go if you don't get any scholarship money. You know, it's a lot. It can be that the debt for education can be huge. So make sure it's an education that's worth it. And and value means something to everybody. It doesn't necessarily mean you have to go to from there straight to Google and make all the money back in 2 or 3 years. That's not it. Meaning it makes you feel complete. Like this is what you really want to do. If you want to be a teacher, you want to go to the best teaching school, go to the best school because now you're going to be one of the greatest teachers because you learn from one of the best programs. So to me, value means a lot of different things that you have to balance out.
Great advice. We have a question. How do you make yourself competitive?
Okay. Competitive. You know, that's a really good question. And I think, so I can speak as a lawyer first. I mean, first of all, I think that, you know, having different tools that figure out what the profession is about. So for the law, it's communication and it's your ability to analyze problems and solve them, to research and put all those things together and then sell them to a client and then sell them to the court. So being competitive means understanding the landscape of the profession, understanding what that is. If it's a doctor, I mean, you know, make yourself competitive, go to the best school you can go to, get the highest grade you can get the best internships you can get. If you're, you know, if you want to be a doctor, you want to intern at the best hospitals that you can get to. And then after that, working with the best people, the smartest people. I mean, that's really important. So if you're younger and you want to be a doctor, for instance, like UCLA has a great summer program for in their robotics and their medical, I think, or some of the, and their the business school. They have incredible summer programs, which is a great building block when you're trying to apply to schools later on. So you're making yourself competitive for different schools at first, and then your schools help you be, you know, your schools and your training help you to become more competitive when you're trying to find a job. Or, you know, trying to get a position someplace. So they're going to look at your schools. They're going to look at what you did with that opportunity. So it's not just where you went. It's like what you did when you got there. You know, because, you know, there are a lot of people that I work with now who didn't, you know, get lucky and get a scholarship to go away to school. They went to Santa Monica City College and then they worked at night and they were one was a police officer, one was a pharmacist, and so they had other jobs that they were doing, and they were gaining all these skills that were great for them in law. The pharmacist, you know, got into representing a bio engineering company, and then made their way around through through law firms to get around to be a judge. And the person who worked in night school and then was a police officer and then went back to school. Became a district attorney, worked their way around, and they became a judge. My thing was, I was in a law firm to begin with, so I was a litigator. I represented a lot of companies, represented the Ritz-Carlton Hotel Company, a couple of athletes, and sort of made my way around to the county counsel's office so I left the private law firms where you make your money to pay off your student loans, which I didn't have that many, but I tried to buy a house, I had to pay that. And then worked my way to the county counsel's office where I represented the sheriff's department, the board of supervisors, Department of Public Works, and then I was an advisor to the former sheriff 2 or 3 sheriffs ago. And I just met a lot of the politicians that I needed, and so one of them said, "Hey, you should become a judge, and you know, what can we do to help you? Because we're not always going to be in this position." So I said, "Great," but I was only 35, and I thought I was too young, and apparently it wasn't because I was appointed about a year after about a year after I applied, and I was completely shocked that they appointed me to be a judge, and that was 22 years ago. So do the math.
Yeah.
But yeah. But it was all a factor of like that's a great question. How do you make yourself competitive? It was always trying to put myself in a position where I could take advantage of another position. So every move that I made was, I mean, sort of strategic, but only because I talked to my friends who were sort of in the same mindset. And and here's another really good footnote: surround yourself with people who want to do something with their lives. If you do that, like, you almost can't fail, because that same group of people, we all support each other. We all have known each other forever. The guy who's the presiding judge now was my friend 30 years ago at the county counsel's office. And we used to talk about, like, hey, we wanted to get married one day and have kids. And I mean, we literally grew up together, but always shared opportunities. And so he's the presiding judge and I'm the assistant presiding judge, but we've traveled, like our families have traveled together. We have really been, he's been my boy. That's my buddy for literally over 30 years. And it takes those kind of really good connections with people and networking with people and friendships to, to make you competitive. Because when people ask anybody else about me, they're gonna run across somebody that I've come across at some point. And, not just my good friends, but people that I've come across. And I've always tried to treat people better than they treat me. So even when I feel somebody has done me wrong, I try to treat them better. I think they learn better if I come across that way, or as opposed to being vindictive. So anyway, when I applied for a judgeship, the only negative comment I had was, I had two. One, that I didn't know anything about criminal law. And I'm like, yeah, okay, that's more of a commentary, not a criticism. And the other one was, he's nice, but he's overly zealous. So I'm a nice person, but I am overly zealous. When I have a client, I'll research day and night and give the best advice I can give and make the best arguments. And all that has built sort of a reputation that, when you're talking about schools and professions, your reputation means everything. So that's a long response to that question, but it's a great question, because you're building your ability to be competitive right now. Mm-hmm. I think even listening to this will help you be more competitive.
Yep. Yeah. And it really doesn't go away, as well as, to get up to where you are. You really got to keep building those and being kind of, we actually have another question too. So do you have a fear of public speaking?
Well, I see we have 7 people now. So yeah, not really, not with this. This is great. Yeah, I do. And I told you because, I think people are surprised because I have to get up in front of people every day. But yeah, I'm very much an introvert. I don't like crowds. I'm very kind of shy and self-conscious for the most part. And I was really awkward as a teen. And I don't even think I went on a date until I was in college. And then I don't even know if it was a real date. I just kind of maybe I just kind of tricked the other person to go to the movies with me. But so yeah, I don't really like public speaking that much until it's over, and then I say, okay, I just hope I delivered a good message to people, and I try to focus on the message more than myself. But yeah, I think everybody, if you have any kind of anything inside you, in your heart, like a soul, you should be self-conscious, because people are listening, and some people will be impacted by what you say. But yeah, I'm not, and plus I stutter. That's another problem for me too. And I don't. A lot of people don't know that I do, because I try to control it by talking rhythmically, and and I learned that from singing because when I sing, I don't stutter. And so someone said sometimes I sound like Obama talking, and I'm like, oh, because he talks that way too. He goes up and down and kind of slow. But so yeah, I mean, I'm self-conscious about that. The same as everybody. Like everybody who gets up and talks in front of people, I don't care how old you are, like or how much experience you have. You should be nervous, and if you're not nervous, something's wrong with you.
Yeah.
You could say the wrong thing. You could have something on your face nobody tells you about, and you feel embarrassed. But I think who asked that question?
It was Sun Moon Beaches, and she also asked how did you work around that?
Working around
The
just doing it, just talking in front of people. Somebody asked me to talk, and I say yes, and then I try to like focus less on me and more on why I'm speaking. And I mean, if it's something like this, I think I'm trying to, when Tatiana and you asked me to do this, and I asked who the audience was, and these are people like young people like I was young at one point and like wanting advice. So I wanted to be available. Um, and so, yeah, so I try to pick my speaking engagements like that so that, so that I think I'm giving something, I'm saying something that people want to hear.
That's
Does,
awesome. And,
does
and
that,
then you, yeah, I think that's a great answer. Well, and then you also with communications professor or working with communications at Loyola Marymount University.
right. And I do teach, and that class makes me nervous every time I walk in because now it's 25 college, kids, uh, and half of them I know don't, initially don't want to be there. They're probably just taking my class because they heard I was nice, and they probably think it's easy because it's called popular culture and the law.
Oh,
So they're like, "Oh, pop culture."
that's
I don't know what that means. And then they learn that the class isn't about what they thought it was. It's about like this. It's about giving advice, have a lot of guest speakers coming in, people who are lawyers to talk about the different law that they practice, because not all lawyers are like NCI and they're in court and they're doing law and order. Hardly anybody's doing that, to be honest. There are a lot of lawyers that never see a courtroom. And there are a lot of lawyers that have huge influence, like the ones that work in Sacramento and Washington, D.C., that help write laws, they're legislative analysts. I know a few lobbyists, one in particular who speaks in my class, and he is the lobbyist for the Judges Association, but also for Apple, for Delta Airlines, for the almond growers of California. And folks never even thought, like, I could be a lawyer and just go and help pass laws, which is so amazingly effective in bringing change about in a state like this. And then I'm, bringing other people who are judges in civil law, judges in with dependency in the children's court. I bring in criminal defense lawyers, prosecutors, have some other legislators call in, like Ben Allen is a senator and he's a lawyer. So yeah, I think the class is really exciting, and then I talk about, we'll show something from a movie or television. I'll have them watch To Kill a Mockingbird, which is a old criminal, 40s or something like that movie, all in black and white. And we talk about, they watch it and they're like, okay, why am I watching this old movie? Well, it has a lot of stories in there about discrimination against people who have mental health problems, and they have their issues with race and whether or not there is you can get a fair trial in a criminal court. There are a lot of like societal issues discussed in that movie that is really relevant to now, especially with the movement going on now. And so they start to see that those aren't just old issues; those are like the same issues that have been going on for a long time.
yeah.
So even though they're kind of woke right now, it's like I kind of remind them, like I've been African American for 58 years. It's like this didn't just start. This has been going on, and we have this cycle of waves of Dr. King and the Freedom Riders, and then a cycle back where there were different administrations in the White House, and then cycling forward, more people were more interested in money, but there was in black neighborhoods there was a crack epidemic that was fueled and funded by sources outside those neighborhoods, and how they decimated families, and how there's a cycle out now to people becoming more aware that justice is very fragile, and the political system is very fragile.
Yes.
So we talk about those issues, and my daughter came in to my class once, and she was listening, and I started teaching the class when Obama was president, and there was a comment once where well, aren't things a lot better now? And I'm like, I think it's because you guys have only grown up knowing Obama as president, like before you really started to be aware. But I said, Obama could be gone, and it could go a whole different direction. And they were like, oh, no. Well, now look, I mean, it's...
You just predicted the future.
Well, yeah. Well, I mean, but I had seen it in the past already, the recent past. So anyway, another footnote, your votes count. If you can register to vote, you should vote and make your voice heard. Because it does have an impact, not just on the presidency, but on your local politicians and on judicial officers. So anyway, yeah, but that's what the class is about, and we talk about a lot of different subjects, and it's a fun class to teach, really fun, mostly because I learn something new every time I teach it.
That's awesome. So we have a question: are you part of any activist groups?
Am I part of any activist groups? Well, as a bench officer, I really can't be. I have to be kind of apolitical. So I mean, beyond my political party, I'm a Democrat. So, but I've been that since before even I knew it, because my dad registered me. he indoctrinated me into a certain belief system. But I'm also an independent thinker. So if I don't think a politician is representing my thoughts or my best interests, like I don't have a problem voting for somebody else, or not putting anybody down for that on that particular spot. So yeah, like as far no, so I can't be involved in politics, although I'm an elected official. Judges aren't allowed to do that, and for good reason. I don't think you want judges, spouting off about their political affiliation, because we're supposed to be neutrals, and the only things I really get involved in are not-for-profit boards for education. So I do sit I do help with Dartmouth's Alumni Council, selecting trustees, which I think is really important to bring the diverse view to that school. So as part of that organization, or that the nominations committee, we put the first Native American woman, the first Native American, she's also a woman, on Dartmouth. She's a Dartmouth trustee now. And Dartmouth was founded, by the way, some 200 plus years ago, to educate Native Americans. That was supposed to be a part of the charter, which they didn't hold to. So it was just great to be able to do that, and to put different voices, people of color on the board of trustees there. And then I'm on the boarding school that I went to. So because I believe in trying to raise money for scholarships. I think it's really important. I think school makes all the difference.
Yes.
Tell me if I'm talking too much on any subject, by the way.
Nope.
Do I need to change backgrounds? Do I need to change backgrounds and make this more exciting?
Nope. You're good. I think the information is fantastic.
Okay, don't bring the bird in yet. I can put glitter too. You want glitter?
Sure, we do glitter.
I love this. Okay.
So that's actually, now let's go. So becoming a judge, that's a huge thing. So do you, wait, I think I've asked this question before, but do you have to become a lawyer to become a judge?
Yes. So,
yes.
there was a point where you could work for a lawyer as an intern, and and I forget what an apprenticeship. They used to do that a long time ago, like 100 or more years ago. Then they have the state bar, which has certain requirements that that you have to go to an accredited school, I think, and then you have to pass the bar exam. But if you have your law degree from another country, I'm learning this as I go along because I have some friends who, have come from China and Iran who are taking the bar now. And so they were able to they're working on their LLM degrees. One has it already, and are taking the bar to become lawyers here. And that's only a 1-year program. Law school, I mean, there are night programs you can go through, but law school is typically 3 years. If you go to, one of the traditional type programs.
All right.
So, yes.
From there, I'm sorry. Go ahead.
No. And, law school is, college is college. You can kind of choose what you want to get involved in, and it's more kind of discovering yourself. And law school is more about it's more about refining your skills. It's more about becoming more analytical, learning how to research, anticipating. They teach you to think like a lawyer. I guess that's the catchphrase that they use. But it's about training your mind to think like a lawyer. It doesn't mean they're going to tell you what all the law is, but if you've learned the right way, you can anticipate what the law is. You can anticipate the arguments for or against upholding that law. You think about economic impacts. You think about constitutional impacts. But I can almost guess what any law is going to be. If you tell me a problem, I can say it's probably this, and okay, here's the law now. But there are arguments you can make. There are always exceptions to the rule that you can figure out, and that's what I think good lawyers do. In representing clients, they're able to put the strong arguments first, and they're able to be creative. But that's what law school is about. And I think law school is amazing. But it does make you think all the time. I'm thinking like a lawyer. I mean, especially like when my family calls me looking for free advice, which they do all the time. Yeah, but it's a really great experience. Because, I mean, learning about the history of the Constitution and learning why parts of the Constitution are the way that they are, and not just having people say, hey, First Amendment, I have free speech. I can do what I want. I can not wear masks. It's free speech. And it's like, no, it's not. Like, you got to study that a little bit better because it's not what the Constitution doesn't say that. Okay. Should we talk about the First Amendment and what the Constitution really says?
Yeah, let's do it.
It says that essentially, it says government can't stop you from speaking. But it doesn't say there aren't repercussions like at work and other places if you just say whatever you want to say. Like, other people have a right to say, this isn't working for me. It's interrupting our business or it's doing other things. And so, I mean, the First Amendment is really about government not infringing upon your right to speak freely. And of course, there's certain controls, like if you're hurting other people with your speech, you can't, there are exceptions where there's a compelling argument against you speaking out. And the classic example that they use in law school is like you're in a crowded theater, which there are no crowded theaters now, but you're in a crowded theater and you yell fire. Well, people get hurt. So even though you might want to say that, yell out fire, the government can stop you or punish you for doing that, because then it becomes something that actually physically impacts and hurts other people. So, okay, no more for that. I don't want to get too boring.
I think they're enjoying it. We do have a question. Can we get law internships or apprenticeships as high schoolers?
Yes. So I've given internships to high schoolers. We do have, if you look on our website, It's called LA Courts. I think it's lacourts.org. And you go on. There's a place where you can look for internships. It might be under employment, or it might actually be under internship opportunities. But there's a drop-down tab. Click on that, and it has all of our programs laid out. But we have internships with individual judges. Not right now, because we're still on this kind of semi-shutdown mode, and we're trying to keep people out of the courthouses as much as we can. So we're really only open for essential services or reserved appearances, so that we can have appropriate social distancing, and we don't want people to be afraid to come to court who really need to be there. So we don't want to have long lines outside. So a lot of our appearances right now are remote appearances, which are scheduled. So that being said, still look there for opportunities, because at some point we're going to start the programs up again. It's just that we shut them down for the summer. But there are slots with individual judges. Sometimes, you can write a judge and just say, hey, I would like to come and shadow you. Or, I'd like to work for you for a few weeks. Is that okay? I mean, you don't get paid for working for the court, but, but that's something that we do. And we have something called Justice Corps. If you look on our website, where you get to help a lot of folks you're trained to help people who are in need in our pro per, which is our self-help center. And pro per is just Latin for, it's propria persona. Means you're there for yourself, for yourself. So we have that program, which is really amazing, and that is actually for college graduates. It's a paid or subsidized program. So there are opportunities like that, and I think Justice Corps does a great job. So yeah, but just click on the website, or check out the website and go to that drop down page, and it has all the opportunities listed.
Awesome.
Yeah.
Another question: what's a great resource for young adults to learn law from?
Great resource to learn law from. Not TV. I mean, I look at some of these shows, and people are asking me, "Oh, wow, are you gonna be on TV or a TV judge?" And I'm like, no, because actually they're not real judges. Some of them may have been judges at one point, but they can't keep the position and be on television. And those people on the shows get paid to, everybody gets something on the show. So they're in the gallery. Those people are there. I mean, it's a TV show. So don't learn from that. You might catch a few notes of wisdom every now and then, but you really can't, that's not the most reliable source. So for law, I'd be honest with you, law, when I got out of law school, it was just like one of the law professors told me. You already know all the answers. And what you realize in the end is that we taught you to understand that you knew, you just didn't know why you knew. So, I mean, law, a lot of it is really just common sense. This whole guessing what the law might be. But for sources, that's hard. I mean, you can take classes in the law, like constitutional classes. A lot of the government classes that are offered are good places. History classes are a great place to learn about laws, because law is nothing but a framework by which the country runs. So that's a hard question. I might have to come back to that one. Good places to learn about the law. I have something on YouTube. It's called Secrets in the Mist. It was a Dateline show about a trial that I presided over, which I would not say that is a good place to learn about the law, because the trial was, what you see on TV is nothing like what happened in the trial. So that's an example of watching that and not learning anything about the law, even though it's supposed to be about a real trial. But I have to come back to that. I mean, I think history is like reading about the civil rights movement, for instance. reading about the Dred Scott decision, and and how African Americans developed from, being all men are created equal, except the folks who wrote that, a lot of them were slave owners. So reading about Thomas Jefferson and the sort of the dual and conflicting life that he was living. There's a book called Holding a Wolf by the Ears about, and it's a quote that he made at one point about slavery and about how it was like holding a wolf by the ears, that you couldn't hold on to it forever, but you didn't dare let it go. And sort of how he was living his life under that weird, philosophy while he was having kids with, some of the slaves. And, but there, one thing you can learn about the law just from studying history is that you understand the law is just as flawed as we are. At any given moment. It could always be better. But learning about injustices and reading about injustices is a good way to learn about and identify injustices now. I kind of wiggled my way around that in that question, but good question.
I think that's great. I thought that was great.
I want that to be my intern. Who is that?
That's that was Sun Moon. The Instagram handle is Sun Moon Beaches.
Okay, Sun Moon Beaches. All right, you're hired.
We have another one. So some research lawyers work from home, like a home-based business. Do judges have this opportunity to work from home?
Yeah, as a rule, judges don't work from home. As a rule, but we do have a unit that works at night, doing search warrants and things that come in that they're emergency restraining orders, things like that, where a judge has to be available. So we do have a unit that does that, called the magistrate unit. During the pandemic, it's been really difficult because there are laws that essentially say that the judge or justice is where the courts are, and that only certain things can be done outside of a courthouse. So we've tried to abide by that as best we could, but the pandemic sort of flipped everything upside down. We had to shut down a lot of our services for a long time, but we're still operating with essential services in our courthouses, which is really tough because you had a lot of judges who were basically walking into the unknown. None of us really knew what this pandemic was about, but we had a lot of brave judges and attorneys who continue to do the work to make sure that people's rights were preserved, especially people in custody in the jails and people who had criminal, whose liberty was at stake. To the best of our ability, we tried to continue to serve those people, as well as, like, a big deal was during the pandemic was restraining orders, and people were at home with people who weren't treating them the right way. So we couldn't just close that down. We had to have access for people who were in emergent situations to get the relief that they needed or the help they needed. So we try to keep that going. And now that we've come back, there have been some judges who've said, hey, like, I've got this element, that element that make me higher risk. So we try to create environments where they're working on their computers. They have remote appearances, but we limit contact with the public to the remote appearance. But even that is sort of wrought with potential problems, because one thing that I've been really concerned with, and Kevin Brazil, our presiding judge, has been concerned with, and we've had conversations with some of the board of supervisors who are really concerned too about making sure that people have access. Justice isn't just like this. Like, imagine being in a custody dispute or, and we're talking about people not seeing their children or losing custody in dependency court, and doing that over a screen, a laptop that maybe has good or bad internet. I mean, it's not right. And there's something, like, inherently wrong with it. Plus, a lot of people don't have access outside. The libraries are pretty much closed now. So, they don't have the computers that were available in the library. So, a lot of people take for granted that they have internet access, but a lot of people don't have that, especially in rural areas and in more impoverished areas. People just can't afford it. It's gotten expensive. So having access to justice is really important to us. And so we're trying to strike a balance. We're trying to offer, the come-in option, meaning the in-person option, to people who really, need that. And for important hearings, we do offer that. Some of the law in motion for some of the civil cases where companies are fighting over money, they don't always need that kind of thing. So, they're getting really good at remote appearances like this, and we think it works really well with our system called LA Court Connect. If you go on our website, go in the drop-down menu, you'll see LA Court Connect, and it has a nice YouTube thing about how it works. So, to that issue, we're trying to be at the court, even if there aren't other people there in front of us.
That's awesome. Well,
Yeah.
Unfortunately, this is all of our time. But gosh, I really hope that maybe you can do a program with us later on in fall. Maybe we can talk about the court system and just how it works.
Sure.
Maybe that'd be like a great program.
I'm sorry, did I talk too long on some of those other questions?
No, I think they were really great. It's just unfortunately we have that time frame of only an hour, but I think you can easily do a 2-hour program with us. It's amazing. There's just so much to cover.
I'll be happy to do it again, and we'll do it in the courthouse next time.
Ooh, yes. All right. Well, thank you so much for being here. Thank you, everybody else, for joining us.
Thank you,
but I'm going to sign us off. Thank you.
Everybody, thanks.